Kevin's thinking on rigs never stood still. Even with amazing results, session after session, he still went back to the drawing board and hit on something extra special.
I've noticed my best seasons have always preceded having a hat full of fish, and this is what was happening at this time. I'd spent the winter on the gravel pit, had the 2020s, and done all the rig experiments. I was so on it, so confident. As soon as spring arrived, I moved on to famous Manor, and on my 5th night I caught the big one. It was 40 3/4. It's a nice story to tell there actually. It really shows how focused I was. I arrived in the car park, really cold, windy day. I was watching the lake, and after about half an hour I saw a fish just flattened the water about halfway down on the left side. So the area where the lake kind of sticks out a little like a point. So I walked round there with my gear, dropped it in the point, set up, just put my 3rd rod out, and I noticed the fish roll about 50 yards up the bank. I couldn't get to it because there's a reed bed in the way, so I've only just set up and cast out, but decided to move. So I lugged all my gear up 50 yards, set up again, just got my 2nd rod out, and I saw a fish roll again, 30 or whatever yards up the bank. I thought, blow this, so I wound the rods in, and I baited some crumb on that spot, and then baited another 2 spots further up, memory, I don't know, 50 more yards and 50 more yards, and just went up the bank and watched the spots. It really was windy, as I said, which I was kind of lucky. I just happened to be looking at the last spot where I baited, and I just saw the water slightly flatten. I thought, the fish is moving along the bank, and that's where it is now. So again, I've only been on the lake 3/4 an hour now, and I'm on my 3rd move. So I moved on to that spot, swung a margin rod out with a ring blowout rig and a PVA bag of crumb, and sat back up the bank. 15 minutes later I got a very short double bleep, and that really unsettled me. I say I was so tuned in my rigs and my paranoia. I thought, has that fish got away with it? I waited another 5-10 minutes, nothing happened, so I just had to wind in that rig. I just couldn't have settled and just sat it out. I checked the rig and it seemed okay actually, but nonetheless I gave it 3 rubs with a diamond lap, put it back out. 5 minutes later it roared off, and the rest they say is history. That was a 40 1/2 in the Manor. I then went back 7 nights later and lost the amphibian at the net in the morning, and on my 13th night I caught the big one again, 45 something, a new Essex record, which just shows how tuned I was on the rigs and so confident then. Next stop was Warnwell. Warnwell at the time was a real big fish water, a small lake. I doubt there's more than an acre and a half, believe it or not, in the middle of a holiday camp in Dorset. Horrendous place really, surrounded by chalets. You fished with chalets behind you and all holiday makers, and at night there was all drunks around. Had 22 swims around this little tiny pool, but what it also had was Herman, a magnificent common and the biggest common in the country. It was attracting top anglers from all over the country, and you kind of find that there's a method being established in an area of the country. So Warnwell was seeing all the best methods from all over the country. Those carp were without doubt the most riggiest carp I've ever come across in my life. They blew me away with their cleverness to get round rigs. I think it's fair to say Warnwell taught me more about rigs and carp behaviour than any other water I've ever fished. But what the Warnwell carp hadn't seen was the ring blowback rig. I started catching from day one, really ripping the lake apart. Again, I don't wish to sound be modest, just really to show the importance of a rig that gives you an edge over the carp. I was probably catching 3 to 4 times at least more fish than the rest of the guys down there, and this went on from June right through really to August. Then slowly I started noticing the results were dropping off. I started getting little flicks on the indicator and single bleeps or just quick double beeps, and that was all. I was still getting a number of takes, but nothing like I was having before. But the main thing that was relevant to me before, I was just getting screaming takes with no false indication in between. And now I was getting a lot of these, indicator flips or just single bleeps. So I was thinking about this one evening. My mind went back to the bent hook rig. That was a rig we used end of the 80s, early 90s. Really effective rig, but it was very dangerous. We got a lot of double hook holds, so we all kind of agreed to stop using it in the end. But I had one permutation where I had a separate piece of tube up round the bend of the hook. I was on a Carp Society fishing, and one of the lads was using my rods, and he hooked a fish and landed it, and I noticed the tube had slid down. Because it wasn't my rig, so I just slid it back up. A bit lazy, I know, but then he caught another fish, and again it slid back down. So I slid it back up and he caught another fish, and I remembered this and the fact the tube slid down. So that's really how the tube version of the ring blowback rig came about. I substituted the ring for a piece of silicone tube. Where my thinking was going now, that 3mm piece of silicone would slide back down the shank if a fish had got away with it. So it's like a telltale. I could tell if the carp were getting away with it. And I think that's the key point of carp fishing nowadays. We sit there thinking they're, not having it, not eating. We just don't know how many times they've got rigged up and got away with it. This way I could tell. Once I found out by using that piece of tube that the warm-wheel carp were getting away with it, because I'd wind it in after a couple of bleeps and find it slid right back down the shank against the knot, it got me thinking. Warm-wheel, a lot of people fish to the islands, those good spots. Off the islands were overhanging bushes, and there's little holes in the bushes, and if you really did a good cast and didn't break it, it'd go right into the hole, and that's where the fish felt safe to feed, because not many people would do that cast. So the last thing you would do is pull back. This is the time of Kristen, silkworm. Everyone was using soft braid hook links, and I just imagine when you did that cast, you wouldn't dare pull back in case you pulled it off position. So I imagine the hook link just looping up all loosely around the lead. So I kind of figured the carp would be conditioned. They knew they could suck in the bait and lift up before they had to slow down and be really cautious to feel for the hook link tension against the lead. So I tied up a combi rig with about 6-7 inches of 20 pound amnesia at the time to give me a stiff rig with just a 2-inch of braid on the front to give me that soft flexible hinge, and I cast that out. In the next 2 hours I caught 6 carp. I've been down there for 3 days without a take. The difference it made was amazing, and that's the whole point of the tube blowback rig. It's that telltale. It tells you when you're getting it wrong, and then you can make changes until you get it right. I really think that silly bit of 3mm of tubing is probably one of the biggest inventions I've come through with for carp fishing. The tube version of the blowback rig is still my preferred bottom bait rig to this day. In fact, 2 of my rods I'm fishing with today have got it on. I don't really think I can better it at this moment. In fact, someone who's interested in the progression, the evolution of rigs, is a little bit frustrating for me that I can't come up with anything better. The ring version, the original version of the blowback rig, I still use now, but really only for pop-ups. I think it's a really good pop-up rig. It's a little bit different, if you like, from the often used swimmers now. Gives you a different permutation, presentation. In fact, I gave it to one of the lads at work, and he went and caught the amphibian out the manor in double quick time twice, when other people have been struggling to catch it for years. So it's still a very relevant pop-up rig.